Welcome to Larry's Library and another edition of the Sunday Scan. This week I read Kobra issue number 2, right here. So we're back to some more weird DC mid-70s madness. But before we get into that, I do want to pay my respects for John Romita Sr. We lost him the other day, not too long ago, and it's another tragedy. You know, another one of the original great creators are gone, you know. Yep, it sucks. There ain't too many of them left from that era. A lot of the comic channels, Garage Geek did one, and some others are doing little mini tributes where they show 5 covers from their collection by the legend John Romita. And so I'm going to show 5 of mine right here for a little bit before I get into this week's single issue scan. So yeah, so I just picked out 5 covers from my collection that were by John Romita. And when I think of John Romita, immediately I think of Spider-Man. And he will always be my Spider-Man artist. Probably because the first Spider-Man comic I can remember reading, I think it was one of those Marvel Tales reprints of Amazing Spider-Man. And I think it was this issue right here, which I think is, I don't have any notes here, but I think it's Amazing Spider-Man 39. With the Green Goblin on the cover. I've always loved that cover so much. And this particular scan is actually my omnibus. I think it's, I don't know if it's volume 2 or volume 3. I think it's Amazing volume 2. But regardless, it's a great cover, and it really shows how awesome John Romita was. And his work lives on forever. As long as we've got copies like this, or the originals, you know, we can enjoy John Romita's work anytime we want. And so I've got a couple others here. Here's another Omni cover, which is the Punisher Amazing Spider-Man cover by John Romita. And then I've got a Thor cover by John Romita. And then this cover here is the cover for Ms. Marvel, the original Ms. Marvel, issue number 1. And this one, this particular scan, is from my omnibus that collects that series. So, yeah, another one's gone, but like I said, we can still enjoy his work forever. Yeah, essentially forever. As long as these editions stay around, or the originals are, you know, preserved in some way, then we can enjoy them. But now, back to this week's book. So, I did read Kobra issue 2, this one right here, and it just gets weirder and weirder. So this cover is by the great Ernie Chan. And I believe he did the pencils and the inks here. And it's some good stuff. Really love that cover. Very dynamic. And yeah, love it. And then we get into this splash page, this opening page, I should say. And unfortunately, it's one of those deals where they don't give the credit box at the beginning. Instead, it's all the way at the end of the story. So let me flip back there and read that to you. Although I think I kind of remember. Just read it a little while ago. But, yeah, so Martin Pasco wrote this one also. By himself this time. No plot or outline by Kirby or anyone else. And Chick Stone penciled it, and Pablo Marcos inked it, with Jerry Conway listed as the editor. No other credits are given on this one. Now, I'm not super familiar with Chick Stone. I've seen his stuff a little bit, but I am very familiar with Pablo Marcos, and he is a great inker. One of the greatest inkers ever, I think, is Pablo Marcos. He can take anyone's pencils and make them look great, and he does a really good job on this issue. So, this one here, this opening page, you later find out is actually the main character, Jason Burr, having a nightmare about his evil brother, Kobra. And he's in this house of mirrors, and Kobra's behind him with this giant scimitar. And it just gets weirder from there. He wakes up on his bed, drenched in sweat, you know, as the nightmare had his brother killing him, impaling him on some broken shards from that house of mirrors. And so he wakes up clutching his throat, but his throat's okay because it was just a dream. And then the comic switches scenes, and you see his brother Kobra in his lair, and he wakes up drenched in sweat also, thinking or having some neck pain as well, because we've established with the last issue that they are empathically linked. So what one feels, the other one feels. Whether that's pleasure or pain, we find out in here, because Jason Burr kisses his girlfriend, and oddly enough, his brother is like, he feels the kiss as well. So yeah, it is just full of goofy stuff. Let me look through some more. So we establish a villain for an arch enemy for Kobra in this one, named Solaris. And we find out that Solaris, his origin's pretty wacky too. He was a NASA scientist that was studying ultraviolet light. And he develops this weapon called the Heliotron. And this thing can produce this death ray type beam after it collects enough ultraviolet light. And it can hit people, and basically it gives them super cancer that eats at them from the inside and destroys them instantly. So yeah, he's another villain set to dominate the world, and he's lost his mind, and yeah. And Kobra finds out about this weapon, and Kobra collects all these wacky weapons like the giant robot from issue 1, and so of course he wants this Heliotron. So they go at it, and you got the police in the middle of it trying to stop Kobra, and also Solaris. And then they finally get, finally get to see our main character, Jason Burr, get his code name and his costume. So they start calling him Gemini, which he thinks is utterly ridiculous, and he laughs about it. But he puts it on regardless, because this costume, not only, I guess, is it protective, but it has all these sensors in it that can give them data on Kobra. Because of their empathic link, he can feel and sense whenever he's near. So yeah, it's a whole thing, and it just gets weirder and weirder. More strange weapons. Now he has this thing called the Serpent's Tongue, which he can launch, I guess, out of his gauntlets. It's not clear where it's coming from, but it's like this. It looks like a long ribbon, but it has a forked end like a tongue, like a snake's tongue, and he can use this to whip people, I guess, or to pull down large objects. I mean, it's very strange and very goofy. And speaking of goofy, even more goofy, Kobra's henchmen, they have these sabers, which look like normal swords, normal curved swords, but they can launch the blades. And not only do they fire the blade, which is goofy enough, because, I mean, how? How is it propelled? Whatever you see fantasy, unless they explain it with magic, which they're not doing here. Clearly, this is all supposed to be technological stuff. It's just goofy when the blade can launch from the hilt of the sword with no means of propulsion, unless it's magic. But if that wasn't goofy enough, not only do the blades launch, but then they can't miss, because they track people like a homing missile. They actually will turn in the air and follow the. Yeah, it's kind of stupid actually, but but it's pretty fun. This whole thing. Yeah. It just gets weirder and weirder, and it is really fun though. I had a lot of fun reading it. I mean, I wouldn't read it if it wasn't fun, but but yeah, they've got goofy costumes and the whole 9 yards, and you get to see, like I said, you see Jason Burr reluctantly accept Gemini as his code name and put on the goofy costume. It's not that goofy. It's white. It's all white. It's more like something it reminds me a little bit of, well, you see it on the cover here, but it kind of reminds me of some of the S.H.I.E.L.D. uniforms that Marvel employed at different times. But yeah, so that is Kobra issue 2, and it, like the issue 1, it ends with a stalemate. Let's look at this again. At the end of the issue, Kobra and his brother Gemini are grappling in the air because, I forgot to tell you, Gemini's costume has a jetpack on the back because, you know, of course it does. And they're battling in the air, and Solaris's death ray beam gets fired at Gemini. It hits one of the engines of his jetpack. So now he's falling from midair, and his brother Kobra grabs him, and they're grappling in midair. Now they're both falling, and that's how that one ends, with a cliffhanger. I'll show a scan of that last page. It's pretty cool. So yeah, a lot of mid-70s goofiness, but fun overall, and excellent art thanks to Pablo Marcos's great inks here. So I hope you like taking a look at this, and come back next week if you want to see some more, when I will get back to my Godzilla read-through of the Marvel Godzilla series. And we'll go back and forth like this each week until I get through these. And I think probably next will be ElfQuest, because I only have a couple issues of that to obtain, and I'll be able to read that series. And I'm talking about the epic Marvel reprint in color of ElfQuest that came out. So, thanks for watching. Come back for more.